how well designed are Kubernetes systems for cyber attacks to deal with vulnerabilities, or there are gaps, irrespective, whatever the case may be. Um, what can be done? What are the best practices that organizations can do if there are these gaps, so that they are at least protected, in the pre-production stage or production stage?
Yeah, so I think, Swapnil, like you pointed out, with these growing cloud-native applications, they all use Kubernetes as the underlying infrastructure or the container orchestration of record. And of course, there are vulnerabilities in the system. So a common one, for example, we do see is getting access to the underlying operating system. And once you have that, either because of privilege escalations or misconfigurations, you can create a lot of damage. And that's number one issue. But to overlay that on the framework where I was talking about saying, let's think about all of the pre-production related cases. Organizations need to make sure that these cloud-native applications, which in turn might be using modules or open source modules coming from various sources, are always scanning them for vulnerabilities, keeping the latest patches and applying those. And that's a big part. And there's sort of good tools which help you with that, whether it's SysDig or Aquasec or SNEC, but you need to go ahead and have the scanning in place. The second part, I think, again, in the pre-production context, is make sure your IAM policies, for example, if you're working in a context of AWS, are in place so that you're doing the user management. And third, which is also very important, and I think I'm quite excited about, is policy management. So we are seeing policy definition or policy as code coming into play right now. And why that's important is you can go ahead and define as an application owner what might be the protection policies required for that application. Don't put this application in production unless there is a policy defined which talks about that this application needs to be backed up and the constructs around what the backup frequency, etc. are. And so that's a new thing which we are also seeing creep up as a day zero activity right at the pre-production stage. And then on the production side, I think you need to obviously go ahead and enforce the policies, whether it's for network protection, it's to go ahead and make sure the Kubernetes admission policies are taking that into account. We also want to make sure that you have full visibility in terms of alerts and you have comprehensive systems from Cisco or Palo Alto Networks which are focused on cloud-native security. And then I think, like we talked about earlier, you also need to make sure that when you're going into production, you do have a backup and disaster recovery policy in place, because at the end of the day, ransomware is a disaster. That's the way to think about it.